All right, welcome in everyone. It's Monday morning. Hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. It is time for a new week of full court press. Rob Bino, we are like officially on conference schedule time, right? Like all of the crazy games, crazy times, day games, a lot of those are done. And for the rest of the year, it's going to be kind of slow Monday. A lot of power conference teams playing Tuesday, big slate Wednesday, big slate Thursday, and then all of my little Northeast schools playing on Friday. So that's what you have to look forward to going forward. A smaller slate today, but still some big games to talk about. But first, as people file in, Rob, how was your weekend?
Weekend was good, Adam. Weekend was good. We do a college basketball show, so let's talk college basketball. Last 30, really since December 1, I went back just to track. I don't always keep track of my record as far as plays released to clients, but last 30 days, number 2 over at WagerTalk overall, and last since December 1st, actually number 2 at WagerTalk. So rolling right along here in college hoop. However, yesterday put a little bit of the brakes on it. I had probably the worst, as far as result goes, probably the worst result I've had all season long, with playing Kennesaw State over their team total against Delaware and not even getting 60 points, which was a total surprise to me. And then I got hooked. I had Seton Hall -2.5, win by 2. And so those were a couple of small plays yesterday. But other than that, it's been really good for about 6 weeks now in college hoops. So tonight, I was looking earlier, and it's still your kind of board. You got a little Ivy League in here. I don't know that we're all that. The Monday SWAC board that gets television coverage on ESPN, right? Usually a SWAC game on ESPNU or something around there, a little Southland. So we got even stuff to satisfy Bayou here, southeastern Louisiana, on the board.
No, one of these days when Bayou's schedule works out, we'll get him on a Monday show. I mean, this is right in his wheelhouse. Southland, SWAC, these types of teams. Reason I asked, how you were doing, I'm going to ask more about that on the show. I know people want recap, transparency, and we have a co-package now. So I feel like, we've got to talk about it. And Rob, for the first 2 months, I had to come on the show and be like, man, I'm off to a terrible start in college hoops. Nothing will go my way. And since the first of the year, it started to turn for me. 7-2 since January 1st. I've tweaked some things where I'm looking for a very specific kind of like subset to play. I wrote about it quite a bit this weekend, and it's worked out so far. So 7-2. If you bought the 3-day package at pretty much any day since we started offering it on a daily basis, I think you've probably done okay. And that is now up all the time. 3 days, myself and Vino, you get all the college hoop plays. We're always going to come on here every day and give you as much information as we can on like 6 or 7 games. But as you guys know, even on a night like this, where there's not a massive slate, there's still so many games to talk about. And, we get into the weeds on this show, which is why I think people like to show up and talk hoops with us. We appreciate you guys. Garth, I see you right there, and I'm going to get to you after our feature game, Rob, which is a very clear feature game tonight. Columbus, Ohio, undefeated Nebraska, pulls off that great win on Friday night to knock off Michigan State. Now they got to come across the country. Rob, I know that Ohio State, it's the spot that bettors are supposed to gravitate toward Ohio State. I don't know that I want to do that. I like this Nebraska team, and I think their priors might be maybe a little low from, just like kind of how they came into the season, having some injuries last year. So it's like I'm very much torn here because my eyes and my numbers from in season, that the real data that we have from this year, say I should be on Nebraska, but it's never easy to go in conference on the road. They're heading to Columbus, Nebraska, Ohio State. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, and it's even harder to go in conference on the road with a bullseye on your chest, right? Nebraska, all of a sudden, as an undefeated walks in, and it's not just, oh, here comes Nebraska. Now it's like, here comes 15-0 Nebraska. It's something to get up for. It was interesting against Michigan State, Adam, the court storming by Nebraska. Happy to catch a little bit of the post-game press conference where Rick Mast actually said he didn't, not that he didn't appreciate it, but he was kind of disappointed by the fact that Nebraska fans at home feel the need to storm the court when they win a big game. His point was, this team is good enough to win big games. We don't need to storm the court like we're some bottom dweller anymore. So maybe we could just sit in our seats and cheer. Interesting change in, belief of this squad. And we talked about him Friday. Was it Friday they played Michigan State? I think it was, when you broadcast from the tunnel there, from the runway. And maybe we'll get to that later. But he's one of those guys. And for Ohio State, we've talked about Christopher Tilley, right? Big center, comes over from the WCC, mostly a post player, and how Mast can drag these guys out beyond the 3-point arc and cut down some of your rebounding. It's always an issue here for opposition. But I think the bigger thing here for Nebraska is you just have to defend the arc against Ohio State. They want to go quick. They shoot threes. The numbers that Bruce Thornton is putting up for Ohio State are incredible as far as shooting goes. I think I saw this morning, number 7 in the country in true shooting percentage. Shoots the 2, shoots the 3, shoots free throws, everything. Ohio State, an excellent free throw shooting team. The situation, like you say, it just screams Ohio State, but they've bet it so hard at this point. It's a 3.5-point move from 1 to 2.5. It made me look at the total, and what I came up with on total, obviously, is you have two opposites. Ohio State, 3 conference games, 3 conference overs. Nebraska been trending to under for quite some time, 7-1 under the total in their last 8. So it's really a battle of contrast here. If I had to, I would maybe take a look at the Ohio State team total, because the away game, and the other thing to mention here is that Nebraska, one true road game all season long. A lot of neutrals, 3 or 4 neutrals, all home. All their good work's been done mostly at Pinnacle. The one road game, they went to Illinois. They won that game, 83-80, which is high scoring. And that made me think, well, maybe Ohio State can get to their team total in this game. That number currently stands at 78.5. I could see Ohio State trying to force pace and maybe Nebraska keeping up. But there's really nothing here, Adam, that I'm thrilled to run to the window with. But I think if I had to, my play would be Ohio State team total over. We'll see if Nebraska can win another high-scoring game. And I know common opponent-wise, you got one team that beat Illinois on Illinois' home floor. You got another team that lost to Illinois. But I'll just wrap it up by saying the 3 Ohio State losses, 2 of those are by 1 point. I mean, it's not as bad as it seems with Ohio State at this point. We'll see what goes on tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to, in my opinion, it's going to be entirely dependent on how Ohio State shoots the ball from outside the 3-point arc and really just probably 15 feet and out. I mean, you don't want to take a ton of mid-range, but Nebraska, pretty solid rim defense. I think they're going to be more inclined to give the 3 up in this matchup. Now, Ohio State being at home, I think that there's, if there was ever going to be a game where they might be able to get hot and hit some threes, it's probably a matchup like this. I was looking at, obviously, Bruce Thornton being the key. I think you kind of have to think, 20.9 points per game, that he would be the key for Ohio State in any big game like this. And, even though I don't think his game necessarily is to just kind of fire threes up, the couple of games that he's really sort of had to volume shoot threes was, West Virginia went 1 for 7, had a pretty good shooting night against Illinois, 6 for 9 from deep. But, it's not like you want him to it's not like you want to just let him shoot from the perimeter. 45.2% for Thornton from 3 this year. To me, this is kind of a high variance. Like, this game could go a lot of different ways. Nebraska, I think Nebraska is probably the real deal. I guess I'm torn on Mast's comments, because at one point I love the pageantry of college basketball, and I love that fan base is like excited enough to do that. I mentioned on Friday the Nebraska crowd against New Hampshire sold the place out. I mean, they're like, they are like all in on that team this year. But Rob, yeah, I kind of agree. If you're favored in a game, you probably shouldn't rush the court. Like, that's just, like, if you're the favorite in a game, there's you probably should have won the game anyway. That being said, like, again, if Ohio State is hitting the outside shot and they can really sort of like draw Nebraska away from the rim a little bit, I think there's a nice path to victory for them here. Of course, you also have to add in the fact that not only is Nebraska going on the road here, but they're going on the road after a massive win over an arguably bigger name. So I totally understand the letdown spot angle. I just didn't have there's just not enough of an edge here to make me want to lay 2.5 with Ohio State. I think if it was like a pick, I'd be more inclined to maybe give Ohio State a shot. But I just don't necessarily think they're the better team than Nebraska, just in general. I think this could just be a spot that's good enough for them to sort of get up and over at home here. So yeah, I'm with you. I guess, man, slightest lean to Ohio State on the side. I suppose as we talk it out, I feel like I've talked myself more into the Ohio State side than the Nebraska side. All right, Garth, this is an interesting one that had a bunch of question marks on my notepad here. So let's get into this. Thoughts on William and Mary, Charleston. Garth says I lean with the Tribe, 11-1 against the spread to start the season. That's my guy Brian Earl there, taking Steve Merrill's William and Mary Tribe and turning them into a contender, Rob, in the Coastal. His second year, we had him at Cornell up here in Central New York for years, and he is sort of seamlessly transitioned to doing his thing at William and Mary, and really has them, has had them playing great ball really since the second that he stepped on campus. And I mentioned this maybe a week or two ago. Brian Earl, in his first year, I think they really started to fizzle out down the stretch last year. And that's something that happened to some of his younger Cornell teams. And I guess when I say younger, I mean guys in the first and second year in his program. Because Brian Earl, the style he plays, Rob, is so demanding that his teams have fizzled out in February at times, right? It's just such a grueling pace. Guys are not conditioned enough to play his style, and they fizzle out. With that being said, it's January 5th, okay? There's been a relative lull for a lot of these teams in college basketball, so I don't see any fatigue being a real issue in early January. And then on the Charleston side, I've really struggled to make an accurate number for Charleston because of how many injuries they've had to deal with so far this year. So, Garth, I'm with you. I lean William and Mary as well. Have not gotten to the window with it yet, but the Tribe certainly make a lot of sense. Rob, talk to me. William and Mary, Charleston.
Yeah, I think that we have to grade Charleston with Hickman and Duggan, right? It's been a couple of games now since they're back. And all of a sudden, when you go through pace numbers, possession numbers of game, with a full group, Charleston is back to playing faster. You got a pair of, even against Drexel, they're up in the 70s in possessions in that game. And against Elon, they were 74. Drexel 63, but 72 points against Drexel, which indicates to me, Adam, that Charleston's ready to get back to a little bit of pace. I kind of disregard the overall adjusted offensive tempo here because now that you're full, your team is whole. It looks like they're getting back to what they kind of do best. And it fits in William and Mary's wheelhouse. As you mentioned, Brian Earl, they're 7 right now in adjusted offensive tempo, but number 1 in the country, the fastest, quickest length of possession going. I've used William and Mary a couple of times, just isolating team total. Wouldn't be afraid to do that here as well. I think their number is 81.5. This could end up being my leg of the parlay. I'll hang on to this for a second, but I just feel like this game's going to go up and down. Money has come toward the over here. 159 and a half opener, now 164 and a half. So people recognizing that it's two teams that kind of want to do the same thing. Get up and down the floor. The one bad thing for Charleston is their 3-point shooting has been miserable. You wonder if that'll ever turn. I mean, to me, it feels like Charleston should probably have some positive regression coming their way as far as 3-point shooting is concerned. However, William and Mary has been playing very good 3-point defense. For those couple of reasons, I know Charleston has home floor. I know they can score. I just think I trust the road team a little more with their offensive ability to get over their total. The question would be, why shy away from the full game total and include everybody? And for me, I think that would be my answer is Charleston's yet to prove that they can hit from beyond the arc. And William and Mary, if they do have a defensive asset, it is guarding beyond the arc. So William and Mary's been good to me as far as putting points up is concerned. I think to get to 82 in this game, probably not an issue. Like I say, it could end up being my leg of the parlay because I really like the way William and Mary plays offense and the pace that they play with. Have to believe there's going to be enough possessions in this game, Adam, to get enough scoring opportunities to get to where I want to go if I wind up on William and Mary team total over.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going off memory here, but I want to say William and Mary last year at one point really like laid it on Charleston and scored a whole bunch of points. And it was one of their sort of signature wins from last year. I probably should have looked that up before we got on the show. I didn't know. Of course, like, we do the show, we kind of come in and we don't ever really know where it's going to go. So didn't necessarily think we know we would talk this game.
I got it for you here real quick, Adam, just
yeah.
to make your point correct here. William and Mary at home beat Charleston 90-75 last year.
Yep.
Was their only
That's
meeting,
right.
but they scored 90 on them.
Yeah, it was like a kind of like a blowout. Because remember, of course, last year's Charleston team probably better than this year. I know that they were probably starting to tail off a little bit, of course, in the wake of Pat Kelsey going to Louisville. But I do remember William and Mary having pretty much doing what they wanted offensively in that game. You talked about the guys that have come back recently. Connor Hickman, sort of probably being the more important of the two. Colby Duggan on paper should help a lot. I don't really feel like he did a whole lot in his first two games back. Played 30 minutes. He wasn't like a super efficient, kind of contributor. But the guy that to me is the big loss and probably speaks to just you liking the over, and Charleston's defense has really suffered, is Mr. Dean. He's been out the majority of the year. He, I believe, only played the first 3 games and is done for the season. And I think he's the reason that Charleston's defense is much worse than projected. Would have easily been their best defensive guard, probably the best defensive player on their team. So again, I'm kind of with you. I lean toward the William and Mary side. I'm not confident enough right now in my rating on Charleston, especially with a couple of guys back in the mix. My gut says don't bunt the number that much just because those two guys are back. Got to see a little bit first. But again, I think this is one of I think the other day I said I've got like 5 teams that I'm just not really sure what to do with at this point. And Charleston is one of those 5 teams because of the name recognition on the front of the jersey, always being sort of overvalued because they've been so good in this league for so long. The injuries, they're a really tough team to get a grasp with. But Garth, if you pin me down to answer your question, I'm with you. I lean toward the Tribe as well. And that Rob is just because I'm a Brian Earl guy. I love that guy when he was up here at Cornell. And I even said when he got the William and Mary job to Steve Merrill, I was like, you guys got a really good one with Brian Earl. Like, he will have you in the mix in the Coastal sooner than later. And that's what he's done to this point. So, interesting game, Garth. If you do go with William and Mary, good luck. And we can circle back. We can circle back with the total at the end of the show, like we always do, where we will be locking in parlay. No, we did not fire Brian Power. BP is still welcome on the show anytime he wants to come on. BP just ended up kind of being the main football content guy over the last few weeks. So he's been doing a lot of college football, NFL, and guys, believe it or not, it takes a lot of time and preparation to come on and do a show like this where you just, rapid fire some random game, from some small conference and we come on here and talk about it. So we kind of just let him go do his thing. But no, BP's always welcome to drop in. He literally has the ability to log in and do that whenever he wants. He might be listening at home and he might be like, hey, I want to pop in right now. So no, we love Brian Power. We did not fire him. He's welcome back. Welcome back anytime. We'll get into some of the other chat questions. I will say this again, though. Rob, did I see that you have a play in the FCS championship game tonight? Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
I do. It's actually a best bet play. And, a lot of guys don't cover the FCS, but I've been covering it now for about 4 years, and you got a good matchup tonight. Cinderella story with Illinois State, a team that really was lucky to get in to the playoff picture and then has rattled off 4 straight wins, and you've got a team returning to the championship game after losing it last year in Montana State. Price tag on that game, I think Montana State 10 and a pretty fair total of 56.5. And the game has moved. Used to be played in Frisco, Texas for years and years. Now it's being played in Nashville, Tennessee here tonight on Vandy's home field. For those who don't check out FCS football, give it a look tonight. These upper tier teams are really, really good. And I was looking at them real quick here, and there's about, I don't know, just at a quick glance, I saw about 24 FCS guys from the Missouri Valley Conference and the Big Sky already in the transfer portal to go to FBS. And you saw those guys take hold. In fact, the quarterback for Iowa this year, Mark Gronowski, South Dakota State quarterback. So bottom line here is I do have a good feel for this game. The play is up and available at WagerTalk.com. I'm 6-2 in the FCS playoffs so far, 75%. So we're looking to close it out at 7-2 with a big play here tonight. You can check it out, WagerTalk.com, or on my homepage, wt.buzz/RV.
That's too bad it's still not in Frisco. I'm in Frisco, Texas right now. That's where I've got some friends. And so I came down to visit some friends and family this weekend. I'm actually, that's where they live, is Frisco, Texas. So that is currently where I am. And I got to say, you talked about Illinois State, Cinderella, much to the dismay of my buddies over at Tarleton State. I think they felt like that was their spot. I think Villanova upset them to sort of open up the door for Illinois State to be in this game. But yeah, the Tarleton State guys followed them closely this season and was rooting for them. And I feel like if you ask around Stephenville, they probably feel like this should be them in that game tonight. So they just hired a new offensive coordinator. He was at the game on Saturday. So Tarleton State athletics alive and well. That place is awesome. They are like doing an incredible job with their facilities. Would not be surprised if they were an FBS football team within the very near future. If a conference can find a spot for them, I think they're going to end up in the FBS. All right. So if you're into football, there's limited college football the rest of the year. Check out Rob's. Is it a 5%er tonight? Or is it
just 4% best bet? And ironically, Adam, I mentioned 6-2 in the FCS playoffs. One of the two was Tarleton State, laid 11.5 against Villanova, got off to a 14-0 lead within the first 3 minutes and thought, wow, this one's going to look pretty easy. And then their defense got picked apart a little bit by Nova that day, but certainly a really good team and a good offensive football team for sure.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch. Interested to see how it, translates to the new venue in Nashville. I believe it's Vanderbilt Stadium. Little too bad that it's on, I guess, on a Monday, but no Monday Night Football. So they kind of have the grand stage, if you will. Should be a great game. And if you're into that, check Rob's play out. And yeah, we'll get back to hoop. You can also check us out any 3 days. We've got that package up, myself and Rob. All the college hoop plays that we release in that time period. But back to baskets here. I think our buddy Keith Bayou Betts Landry went and saw one of these teams this weekend. So Stephen F. Austin, the Lumberjacks, 12-2, Rob, off to a great start. They're headed to McNeese to play McNeese State. Obviously the odds-on favorite to win this league. I think our guy Bayou went to Stephen F. Austin's game on Saturday at Southeast Louisiana, where they won 73-63. Rob, we talked about McNeese State a lot, and I feel like you have a better beat on this team than I do. So I'll let you kick it off, but I want to point out the travel here. Stephen F. Austin has been on the road for a while. They had the East Texas, Louisiana swing last week, going to East Texas A&M and then down to Northwestern State. And then the Lumberjacks had to head back to the state of Louisiana this week for 2 more road games. So not exactly the easiest sort of spot to draw easily the best team in the league in McNeese State on their home floor where they've been virtually unstoppable the last couple of years. So, Stephen F. Austin, do they have a shot in McNeese tonight?
Well, if you want to, a lot of guys won't stand in front of a locomotive, Adam. And right now, point spread wise, just from betting terms, Stephen F. Austin is that locomotive 7-0. They should be 6-0, 7-1 against the spread in their last 8 games, 7-0 straight up in their last 7. So they're playing great basketball at this point in time. And my first inclination when I look at this line is it would probably be a defensive battle in this contest and points worth taking in that particular instance. Stephen F. Austin, travel aside, probably, in my estimation, enough offense to slip in under a number. When you look at McNeese results so far this year, and we have talked about him quite a bit, Will Wade handed it over. It's not the same program that created the type of separation on the scoreboard as they did last year. McNeese State could hold you to 48 and get to 78. It was not that difficult for them last year in this league. This year, a little bit more of a, winning games, but not quite with that type of authority. 10, 12, 14 in that type of mix. Blasted East Texas A&M. They're supposed to do that, but I could see a close, hard-fought defensive confrontation here. Totals come down 44 to 42.5, which kind of, I see some 143s out there as well. Kind of goes along with my my perception of the game. However, the money has come in on McNeese, up from 9.5 now to 10.5. They are the best team in the league. I think the only reason for me, I think it's more style and strength of team, which lies on defense on both sides. I think that's probably why I feel like 10.5 is a lot of points in this game. Stephen F. Austin's put up some really good numbers this year. I don't think they can be ignored. So if I was going to play Adam, the home team is the better team, but I just think 10.5 might be a little too much at this point.
Yeah, so I will backtrack to I sort of hashed it out ahead of the Incarnate Word game and then the Houston Baptist game. I have a very specific angle I'm trying to play with McNeese in conference play that's now 2-0, but it also relies on them. It's McNeese on the road, which they've been on a nice string of home games here. So even though Stephen F. Austin is one of the teams I had circled to play against McNeese, I'd prefer to do that on the road. I'm not saying that I didn't consider it a little bit here, but man, if you look at McNeese splits, their home road splits, I mean, this team is just deadly in Lake Charles, Louisiana. They're really tough to beat at home. And yes, you're getting you're getting a healthy number with Stephen F. Austin, but still they've been able to really pull away from some of these teams. Now, Stephen F. Austin, I think at this point, I'm comfortable calling them the second best team in this league. I think it's pretty clear. McNeese, Stephen F. Austin. There were some other teams that I thought could get up in the mix, but the more I watch them, the more I think that they're the clear two. The other thing that's tough here. So Stephen F. Austin's best player is a guy that I thought was going to be a star at UMass for Frank Martin, Keon Thompson. And he really just never panned out for the Minutemen, but that's also just a complete grease fire that's going on in Amherst, Mass. It's just a mess. Ultimately, they probably need to go in a different direction. I don't think Frank Martin is it, but we're not going to talk about UMass today. We're going to talk about Keon Thompson. Ever since he showed up in, I think it's Nacogdoches, Texas. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. He's been arguably the best player on this roster this year, the top scorer, 17.6 points per game. The tough part for him in this matchup is he's going to probably be blanketed by Garway Dual, former Providence guard, who's a great defender. I was at the game when Garway Dual punched the guy on Kansas State in the face down in Bahamas. It's my Garway Dual. That's the first thing every time I talk about him that comes to mind. But McNeese can do a job defensively on Keon Thompson. And my gut says the same thing as you, Rob. Hard fought defensive battle. That could end up being a McNeese 13-point win when it's all said and done, right? Because I really think they can, hit the knockout punch, wipe you out defensively last 5 minutes of the game. I like the under here. And on a day where there's just not that much, not that much to for me at least to love on this board, under might be a look for me here in the the parlay. But like you, I think I'm going to see what else comes up and make that decision at the end of the show.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up Thompson, Adam, because McNeese, for those who haven't seen them, basically on the defensive side, it's like a swarm almost. They want to force you into turnovers. They're very, very good at taking the ball away. And so far this season, analytics show you that Stephen F. Austin, Keon Thompson, the point guard for this team, they don't turn it over. So it'd be a real good matchup there if McNeese can't get those extra possessions that they generally get caused by turnovers because Stephen F. Austin is protecting the basketball. We'll see. Probably not something I would get to the window with, but the question was asked, and my thought process on it would be probably Stephen F. Austin plus points. Although I probably would agree with under in this game, Adam, because when you said knockout punch when you were going through your analysis, I'm thinking to myself, something like 73-60 is very possible in a game like this. And that does end up a McNeese cover and under. But I would put a little trust in the Stephen F. Austin side.
I think the chat is poking fun at me, Rob, right now. It's not knock it Dochis? Is that what it is? I probably said it wrong. Listen, come listen to me talk Korean baseball. Like I'll listen, I'm gonna butcher names. This is not, I didn't go to journalism school. Like I'm really just, I'm just here to kind of be a degenerate and talk sports betting with you guys. So it is what it is. I say Appalachian State wrong too, and they come for me every time there's a clip of me talking about is it Appalachian? I don't know. Anyway, I think Colin Gregory is a Texas guy. That's probably why he's like, show some respect here. I get it. Bayou Bet says Nagadochis. All right, we got to move on before there's like a clip of that, like me trying to say that, like making its rounds on the internet. So let's move on. Different game. Let's go back to the chat here. A couple people asked about this one. This is as you said here, Rob. Kind of in my, one of the few that's up in my neck of the woods tonight of the teams that I typically get involved in quite a bit. This is a very intriguing game. And I feel like as a pace totals guy, you're going to have an opinion here. So Columbia is headed to Ithaca, New York to play the Cornell Big Red tonight. Ivy League play. I think this might be the Ivy League opener. I believe this is the first Ivy League game of the season. They did not kick conference playoff last week or over the weekend. They play a little bit of a more watered down conference slate, just 14 conference games in the Ivy, 8-team league. Everyone plays each other twice. Only 4 go to that Ivy League tournament, Rob. So every game in the Ivy is a big game. And Columbia heading up to, listen, I don't mind. It's Jacques, I believe. Jacques is the coach for Cornell now. I don't mind him, but I do think he might be like, I think this might be the Temu version of Cornell. I've said it a couple times. Like they're just not as clean and crisp as the Brian Earl teams. They play the same way, but it's a little bit sloppier, turn the ball over more lapses on defense. So they're kind of a fade for me for a team that can handle that, which I think Columbia might be a team that can handle that style, that tempo. Especially, of course, now Columbia, their new head coach, former Florida Gators assistant, I think potentially doing big things with that program. So this is an interesting one. Curious to see if you're going anywhere with the total here.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to make you pay for it, right? If you like over, it's very hard to come to a conclusion where you like under between these two. We're going to see 3-point bombs away. We're going to see 2 very good 3-point shooting teams. Cornell, of course, breakneck pace, so you probably get the possessions. But all that said, you have to get to 170 now, which is, 85 aside if they played it even. And the point spread here up from 1 to 2.5 tells you, well, you probably need 89, 83, something, 87, 81, something in that vicinity. It's 87, 81 doesn't even get you there. But you get the point. You need a lot here. Now, that being said, it's not against Cornell's religion to get up into the 90s. That's for sure. And they've done it recently. They scored 97 against Michigan State, for goodness sakes. So you can get points from this team. I would think that, Columbia has no shot at slowing down the pace in this one, so they go with it. Columbia, all the metrics suggest that Columbia is the slightly better defensive team. Cornell plays little to no defense. It's sort of reminiscent again. And whenever I see a team like this, I use the analogy or the comparison to the 1990 Loyola Marymount team. And nobody will ever be like that, but it's basically saying that Cornell's going to score, and they really don't care if you score. They just want to take it out of the bottom of the net and get down and score again and wind up being the highest point total on the scoreboard. So it's difficult here to say under. They're making it tough on me to bet over. It's obviously my initial reaction, and I still think it'll probably get there, Adam, to tell you the truth. I still think you'll probably find this game in the 170 somewhere. So for me, it would be a void side. Although the money hasn't, the money's been on Cornell here. And I would probably look towards total, which continues to rise. And I'm looking right now live, and I see a couple of 170s out there. Once again, it's that 10 to 11 a.m. block Eastern time in the morning where these lines move. If you like over, you better just bet it now because it's a 5 o'clock Eastern start. By that time, it'll probably be 172.5 total. So if you like it, get the best of the number right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Columbia, if Columbia does not want to probably play a game that goes over, right? Like Columbia, if their path to victory here is going to probably be to slow this game down, try to, they've got some solid front court players on this roster that can absolutely score on Cornell if they can slow the game down and turn it into like more of a half court game. They've got guys that can execute and score against Cornell, who I've not really been impressed with defensively. So just because it's not a track meet does not mean this one still can't get over, because even if Columbia does slow it down, they might be efficient enough to score enough points to push this one over. Yeah. Like for me here, again, I've talked about this a lot this year. I've really am looking to kind of play against this Cornell team when there's a team that's not going to get totally sort of like baffled by the crazy style they want to play. My gut says that Columbia is well coached enough to not fall into the traps that are like that Cornell can sort of set against, like either A, far weaker competition, or like B, the last time Cornell played, I believe, a game that we could bet on, because I think they had a non-D1 opponent mixed in there. A team like a Michigan State where, yeah, they're probably not going to win that game, but against the spread, they can cover because, they'll just, their style is like good enough to, I think they got to like 90 something, gave up 114. I think it was like 97 to 114. So I think if Cornell can slow this game down, get the ball inside a little bit, they're probably going to score. That's the thing. You can beat Cornell at the rim pretty easily with size. I just think that like the Cornell teams that have been in this league the last few years are just better than this one. And so again, I'm going to put this will be my parlay leg. I may add this for clients as well. I was hoping to get 3, but these are the types of games I've been looking for, closer to a pick where I just really am asking the better team to win the game. In this case, we're actually getting 2.5 points. I think that's kind of, at least MGM and some of the other books still have 2.5. I think I see some going to 2. So really just need what I consider to be the better team to win. Ithaca on a Monday with the amount of snow they've gotten, no kids there. I'm not giving Cornell much of a bump for home court. Be surprised if Columbia even gets to the school at this point, the way it's snowing in that part of the country. But yeah, this is going to be my parlay leg and a very likely a client play for me as well. I just think Columbia is the better team, and if they can play their game, get Cornell out of the way they want to play, they should kind of win this one without much issue, I think. So Columbia plus 2.5 parlay leg, and a very likely going to the client card.
Last thing I'll say on that one, Adam,
real quick,
is that I always like to find a comp game, a comparison game. And for Columbia, that comp game, and this is for totals bettors. This is not for side bettors, but for totals bettors. Just a couple of games ago, Columbia went down and played North Florida, which stylistically is very much like Cornell, rapid pace. They don't shoot anywhere near as good as Cornell, but they play that style. Game landed 172 for those of you considering over. And out of Cornell's 6 losses this year, 5 of the losses went over the total. So if you're on the Columbia side and you're a big parlay guy, Columbia and over could be a way to go. But Cornell, even in losing efforts, they get themselves up and over the total. So we'll see how that goes. That's mainly for totals bettors here as we talk at 169.5, 170 current price.
Yeah, and I caught some of that game. I kind of leaned toward Columbia in that game. The number was quite big. That was ultimately what kept me off is sort of personally avoiding either these big underdogs or these big, having to go and lay a big number on the road. So I was correct to just kind of stay off of that one because Columbia didn't cover, but I felt like they were just sort of in Christmas break mode a little bit, not really fully focused. Going to be focused here again. Top 4 teams get into the Ivy League tournament. Yeah. It is a battle. There's a lot of parity in this league. Yale is very likely going to run away with it and grab that top spot, but these are huge games for 2, 3, and 4 to get into your conference tournament. And because it's only a 4-team tournament, you get in, you only have to win 2 games to get to the NCAA tournament. So yeah, I think this was on my short list on a short slate today, Rob, and I have fully talked myself into this one. So Columbia plus 2.5 will be a play for me. And again, I'm banking on the Lions slowing it down and making Cornell kind of execute a little bit in a slower game. I think that is going to be an issue for the Big Red. So it's an early tip and a best bet for me. Columbia plus 2.5. Joey Cheese, well, first of all, it's okay that you're late, Joey, and I'm glad that you brought that up because this show, not only is it live, it's also on demand every day. WagerTalk YouTube channel. You can catch the replay. So head on over there. While you're over there, a like, a subscribe, a comment, they're all appreciated. It helps us get up in the algorithm, which is the goal these days. Get in the algorithm, stay in the algorithm. So if you can head on over and check out any part of the replay and hit us with a little like and subscribe, it's much appreciated. And Joey Cheese, because you are here in person, I know you're a busy guy and we appreciate you stopping in. We're more than happy to talk Harvard basketball, stay in the Ivy League, Rob Vino. They take on Dartmouth. And so I'll set this up by saying Harvard coming into the season, I kind of had circled as the team that could really surprise in this league. It was pretty well known that Yale would be the far and away odds-on favorite to win this league. But, with Princeton losing Xavier Lee and Caden Pierce, Columbia having a new coach, Cornell not being the same Cornell team they've been in years past. I think to Brown being down from what they've been the last couple of years, Keon Lilly moving on. He was one of the best players in this league last year. I really feel 2 to 4 is right there for the taking, wide open. And I felt like there was no better team to put themselves back up in that top 4 in the Ivy than the Harvard Crimson. Tommy Amaker's been in the league forever. He hasn't had a good team in a while. I can't remember the last time Harvard was even in the top 5, top 4 and even any good. I think they might have snuck in one year as the 4, but they really haven't had a good team in years now at this point. But last year they brought in a guy by the name of Robert Hinton, who's turned into one of the best scorers in the conference, leads the team 15.9 points per game. I really like sophomore Austin Hunt. He got hurt last year. I was at the game. He got hurt down at Navy, talking to someone from Harvard that was really, no more than 30 minutes before he pulled his hamstring. A Harvard guy I was talking to at the game was talking about how excited that they were about him. Hinton was getting all the attention and they really liked Austin Hunt. So he lost a lot of his season last year coming back from an injury. But he's starting to get in the mix there. So with all that being said, I'm pretty pro Harvard just in general. It's just they disappointed me a little bit in the non-conference. I thought there would have been some better results. A loss to BU, weren't competitive against a BC team I thought they matched up pretty good against, losing to UMass, just not the best non-con slate for them. Conference play starts here. We go back to the last couple weeks. It is somewhat of a clean slate, Rob. So should I start to buy back in with Harvard now? I think they're a much better team than Dartmouth.
Yeah, and Dartmouth has shown us so far this season, Adam, that they're really, I use this phrase a lot, but they're kind of a one-trick pony. They're a team that wants to get up and down and shoot threes. It's what they do best. Harvard doesn't necessarily, or has not necessarily, defended the three overall this season. Again, overall statistics at this point in time with the non-conference schedules that these teams play sometimes has to be taken with a grain of salt. But I will say this, Harvard, far more methodical. And when they get an opponent, you just go down their ledger. When they get opponents who are average, below average, snail's pace teams, their defense locks down. And you just go through these results and you see that these teams can't score on them. Dartmouth isn't really that. Dartmouth is a team that can score and can make buckets, won't defend on the other end very well. And I just find some value here in this total at 145. I feel like this total is predicated on, and it most likely is, on overall season results to this point, and not necessarily the matchup that'll take place here. Harvard's efficiency on the offensive end, whether they go, whether they use 20 seconds of the shot clock, whether they use 25 seconds of the shot clock, their efficiency on the offensive end here should get them into the mid-high 70s here against this Dartmouth team. That being said, what's required out of the other side at that point is high 60s, maybe reach 70. And Harvard's allowed that type of point total to teams that are a little quicker, to teams that are capable of scoring that. So I think there's a slight edge toward the over in this particular instance, just due to matchup. I probably won't play it because I think the wiggle room here is very, very little. At 145, you're asked to get 7.5. Let's just use the score here, probably somewhere in the 77, 69 range, which I think is possible. But like I say, there's not a lot of wiggle room with that because Harvard generally won't get you into the 80s. And Dartmouth is going up against a little bit better defense here. So I would have a slight lean toward over in that one, Adam.
Rob, I think that's probably the better way to play this game. I'll go back to Dartmouth's last couple games. So I had a nice cover with Dartmouth about a week ago. I took the 36.5 against Florida. And a big reason I played Dartmouth, well, the number was, in my opinion, obnoxious, 36.5. Probably should have been 8 points lower than that. And it really never came close to that. But Florida, I figured Florida, especially as the game started to get out of reach, would kind of give up the three a little bit. It's something they've done most of the season. And that's exactly how Dartmouth was able to stay within that number. That got up to 30, like relatively quickly. And then as soon as Florida started kind of just letting them shoot an open three here and there, Dartmouth hit a whole bunch of threes and ended up keeping the game. The last 10 to 15 minutes of the game were very competitive. Dartmouth 12 for 27 from 3-point land. And yes, this is a good 3-point shooting team. The problem and what makes it difficult, in my opinion, to bet a side in this game is when Dartmouth does not shoot the ball particularly well, you get a result like the Sacred Heart game where they lost by 22 in a game that they were like a 1-point favorite. Many would say maybe they're at least on par with Sacred Heart, and that game was never close. Go back to the game prior to that, same thing. Their Holy Cross and Dartmouth are relative equals, I would say. 14 for 24 from three, and Dartmouth won the game 89-64. So it really makes the side challenging, especially when you're talking about laying points against Dartmouth, because of course, in this instance, not only do you need to win with Harvard, you need to cover the 6.5, which is now 7.5. So yeah, I'm kind of with you, Rob. I think if I was going to play this one, I would just hope that, Dartmouth, hope it's a good enough shooting performance. But again, I think you have to like the fact that if Harvard opens this game up, which the books kind of suggest they might with this number, that you might get the barrage of threes late. It's a 10-point game. Harvard sort of starts to feel good about themselves. and then suddenly Dartmouth hits a few threes to make it close, and all the while, and then maybe you get extension. All those things kind of add up to, I think, the over being the look here.
And you jogged my memory a little bit because that game against Sacred Heart, I think that was the 11
That was
a.m.
Kids Day,
bus in the high
education
school
day right
kids.
there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we had that game that day. Yeah, the old 6-7 game.
Yeah, and Bayou said, we kind of talked about that game quite a bit that day. Bayou said, Sacred Heart, they just bullied them, outmatched them, and Dartmouth gave up at the end. That's the tricky part here, because when you go down 20 and at 11 a.m. to a team like Sacred Heart, like I could understand giving up. I find it less likely that Dartmouth would just roll over in a conference opener if they're only down like 12 or 13. Like, it's easy to wave the white flag down 20 in the second half. I'd be kind of surprised if Harvard can open it up to that extent, right? Like, and so you stay in that 10 to 12 point range. I think there's a lot of chance for points late here. So might even be a good one, Rob, to take a look at a second half over if the first half plays out a little slow. All right, Rob, I'm going to go to you. We got about 10 minutes left. I've locked in my parlay leg with the Columbia Lions. Do you have an idea of a game you want to go to here to close it out?
Yeah, I think as I scanned over this whole thing, Adam, and I came close, and maybe we'll hit on USC, Michigan State after I'm done here. But I don't see anything really that I like more than what I talked about earlier with William and Mary going over 81.
All right, so
but that's
Rob, let's do this. Let's go to that, because that's kind of the other big game. I wanted to talk about that game too. Since we've already talked about your game, we'll recap it at the end. Let's hit USC, Michigan State. I was wrong about USC on Friday. I thought it was too many. It clearly was not. It has me questioning my number on USC a little bit. So my gut said too many again here, but didn't really want to get involved after seeing what I saw on Friday. So yeah, talk to me about this game, USC, Michigan State. Are you looking team total over again here?
Well, on the other side of that, Adam, you didn't like what you saw at USC. And I think we talked a lot about situational with Ohio State welcoming in Nebraska. Maybe Nebraska's in the letdown spot. Michigan State's the team that lost that game, and now they're home in East Lansing. And USC's hung around Michigan for a while. It's hard to not think that Michigan State's going to do a lot of damage to USC again. What we saw defensively there real quick here in that game against Michigan, and I did have USC team total over 74.5. I don't think they got to 70. I think they got to 69 as their final score in that case. It might have been 68, but USC actually, whether Michigan didn't shoot it well or whether they played three-point defense well, Michigan did not shoot threes very well at all in that game. But what they did was make about 72% of their twos. And if you can be beaten inside, now Michigan's a pretty good inside the arc team. It's where Michigan State kind of makes their living every year inside the arc. So that's a little bit discouraging if you're a USC alum or a USC fan, because I think Michigan State will have their way at the rim or in the paint in this particular game offensively. All that said, Eric Musselman's team just never got out of the funk that they were in shooting the basketball in that game. And I went back and looked a little bit. When Michigan State's home in East Lansing, I wish I had splits, home road splits of pace, tempo, but Michigan State's unafraid to run at home. They don't do it as much on the road. They take their defense and their methodical stuff on the road because that travels. But at home, they're not afraid to get up and down with you. And I get the feeling that this number, which has now been bet up 148.5 up to 150.5, 151.5 in some locales, I have a feeling that money's right here. USC, from what I saw, probably won't be able to defend Michigan State. But on that same token, I think USC is going to have a bounce back offensive game here. Michigan State's not the easiest defense to do it against. And I'm not saying that USC is going to go for 90, but they'll probably go for more than 69. I think the game gets a little bit quick. And Michigan State probably your winner. I think I would look over in that contest. Again, they're taking a lot of the wiggle room out of this game now. 148.5 certainly looks a lot better than 150.5. But still, I think Michigan State's tendency is to go ahead and play higher scoring, faster paced games at home, especially when they're favored and they can have their way. So that's kind of the way I look at this one.
Yeah, I, gave out USC as the parlay leg on Friday. And as the day went on, I was kind of, I guess, right at the time of the show. I think we got like 23. It got knocked down to like 21.5. But I don't know. I had like, I just couldn't get there. Something told me like, just don't take a worse number. Don't do it. Right. Like, and that ended up being the right move as Michigan sort of ran that up. Numbers wise, again, I think I was at like 8.5 or 9 here. I have like 6 papers on the desk, and of course, don't know where that one is. Couldn't be less organized, Rob. Yeah, I was actually at 7.5 here for Michigan State. So again, my number for the second game in a row is showing quite a bit of line value on USC. But the question I'd like to know is USC staying in town until Friday to play Minnesota? Like, would they go all the way back to Southern Cal just to come back and play a Friday Big Ten road game up in Minnesota? Because if they're not, that's a long week, right? Like they played Friday night in Ann Arbor. Obviously, they hung around to play this game in East Lansing. I'd be somewhat surprised if they travel all the way back to Southern California just to turn around and travel all the way back to Minneapolis. So, the mentality of like, kind of knowing you're away from home for, 8 days. And of course, it's not like this isn't 8 days in, Palm Springs, right? It's northern, it's Michigan, it's Minnesota in the middle of winter. That can be soul crushing a little bit. It's just, again, and because of that, I think, you talk about Michigan State losing on Friday in the manner that they lost, the bounce back spot for them, and just having been up to East Lansing a couple times, sort of knowing that they can run it up at home. I think I'm like going to pass on USC, even though once again, that 12 that was hanging out there about an hour ago was very tempting, because I think USC has the athletes, and I do think that they're probably a little undervalued by the books, but I may have to revisit that when they're back at home, hopefully even more undervalued than they are right now.
I'm going to give you a real quick quote on what you were talking about from Eric Musselman. Yep. I just found it here. This is Eric Musselman calling this a gauntlet of a 3-game Midwest road swing. He said, I don't know if anybody's prepared in the country for this trip. Musselman said, we're going to be on the road longer than a lot of NBA teams when they go on an East Coast trip. And that's coming right out of Christmas break. So that would suggest they're staying there, Adam. And he's not kind of thrilled about the Big Ten schedule maker throwing them up there in the north top of the country for as long as they're going to have to be there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and then of course, sort of to see what we can take from that into Friday's game with Minnesota, which would be easily the best chance for USC to get a win on this swing. So that'll be interesting. Joey Cheese says, Rob breaks down totals like nobody in the business. It is quite amazing. I very much agree, Joey Cheese. Phenomenal handicapper, but the way that you sort of find your way in with totals is very impressive. And we try to hit as many on the show as we can. If you like what you're seeing on the show, give our 3-day package a try. It is basically the exact same thing that you're getting on the show, except it's what we actually play, and you don't have to listen to me talk. You can just read. So that's a huge plus as well. But Rob, I'm going to give him the floor. We already talked about the game, but Rob, can you clarify for the viewers what you want to close the parlay out with?
Yeah, we're going to close it out with the William & Mary team total, Adam, which right now sits at 81.5. Really a 110 deal, so no juice to speak of here. But we're going to look for William & Mary to get to 82 in this game against College of Charleston. If you need to hear why, it is earlier in the show. I know that it'll be time-stamped and you can go back and watch it. But William & Mary team total up and over 81.5.
Yeah, I can assure you if those timestamps are not done like very shortly after the show, I'll be hearing from Kelly Stewart. So it will be timestamped. Yeah, they will be in there very soon after the show. And that'll close out the show. And I'll recap the parlay again, Rob. Even with me ruining Fridays, still plus 316 Stone Cold Steve Austin, plus 316 units on the season. Love to see that it's in the plus. Plus 260 today is the odds for the two-teamer. We've got Columbia plus 2.5 for me, and then Rob Bino going with William and Mary over 81.5. That's a team total, and that's your two-team, hopefully, winner. It's a pleasure as always. We'll see you guys again tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, more full court press. Have a great day, everybody.